Hello! In my previous video I opened up a watercolour advent calendar and there are loads of pieces of paper in here, bookmarks, postcards and some larger pieces. So I thought today I'd use some of them up and do some paintings. Most of the paper is Fabriano Artistico except for these two pieces which are Khadi, and that's an Indian cotton paper. The Da Vinci paints also came out of the calendar, and I've pulled out a few other watercolour palettes from my stash, although I did actually end up using quite a lot more than what I have here. I didn't use the Daniel Smith, but I did use the Rosa Gallery paints. I had no plans for what I was doing today, but I'm just going to make it up as we go along, so let's get into it! I thought I'd start out small with one of the bookmarks, and I didn't feel like taping anything today, so I just painted the entire piece of paper. I'd wet it first and then I was adding paint on top just to get a wet on wet effect. This first painting is a beachy scene made up entirely out of imagination with no references, so it was a bit of a mess to begin with. Those hibiscus flowers look pretty dodgy, but I'll be fixing all of that up later. So as I'm filming this in December, it is of course summer in Australia and the weather has been heating up, so I had summery things on my mind, including summer Christmas. But I wasn't liking it very much, so I've actually pulled out some gouache. That's Holbein Iridori gouache. I just picked out a few different colours, and I'm going over everything with a more opaque layer so I could fix up some of it and just make it look a bit more interesting. I find sometimes that there can be limitations with watercolour, particularly because it's not very easy to layer, and if you need to hide a few mistakes and things like that, which I was definitely doing, it is much easier to have an opaque paint that you can go over the top of things and get better detail. I think the gouache saved this painting. I liked how it came out in the end, but it took me a while to get there. Being my first one, I was trying to warm up a bit, I guess, but once I'd added in the central parts of the hibiscus flowers, they do actually look a lot more like what they're supposed to be. And I dotted in a few other little random orange, red and yellow flowers just to make it look more interesting. This actually ended up looking quite a lot more festive than I anticipated. I wasn't planning on this actually being a Christmas painting, but it does have a summer Christmas vibe to it, and I'm happy about that. Melbourne summers tend to be very up and down. We'll get waves of heat come through for a few days, and then there'll be a significant cool change, so the weather will cool down by sometimes up to 20 degrees, and then it will ramp right back up again into the searing hot temperatures. So it's always hard to know what Christmas Day is going to be like. Some years it's nice and mild, other years it's just perfect summer weather, and other years it's really stinking hot. Thank goodness for air conditioning. But anyway, I'm finishing this little painting up with a gold border using some gold gouache from the Idododi set, and I'd made a mess on the back, so I just thought I'd go around with some more of that gold and hide the bits that had leaked underneath, making it look a lot more neat and tidy. This is the only bookmark that I did today, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think it's nice and summery with a slight Christmas feel to it. On to the second painting, and this one's on a postcard. I was still feeling summery, so I thought I would draw a pineapple. Don't know why, it was just something that I saw on Pixabay, I think, and I thought that could be fun to draw. Really complicated, it turns out, but I'm actually really pleased with how my initial pencil drawing was going, and I'm using the pencil that came out of the calendar for this one. This is one of those artworks which started out really well, and then I had a very bad phase in the middle part, and then I think I managed to pull it back together at the end. It didn't help that my fountain pen leaked on the drawing. I was very annoyed about that, and there was no getting rid of that ink, so I just had to kind of hide it a bit later. I think my mistake was just inking everything. I don't know, it looked better in pencil, but I didn't like the pen so much. Oh well, I'll get in with some watercolour and just drop some different colours on it, oranges, yellows and green, and then up here I also had the green stems. I wasn't sure what else I was going to do with it, so I decided to paint in a background, and I'm using purple down the bottom and that lovely cobalt turquoise up the top. All of my paintings today feature the cobalt turquoise, by the way. I just think it's a really pretty colour, it's very summery, and it's a nice one to look at, so I thought it would be one to add to all of the paintings and just kind of tie them together in that way. This is where I stuffed it up. I should not have put the gouache on top. It just doesn't look right, and and I was regretting it immediately, but I just kept going because what else am I going to do? This was one of those paintings where I could have quite easily abandoned it at this point, but because I knew I was recording and I didn't have that much time to do it, I just had to keep going. So I'm going over everything with gouache and just trying to blend it together, make it look more like a pineapple. But really, I was just too stubborn to give up on it, and quite often if you just add more layers, it will improve it eventually. It's still not looking great, and a lot of my pen lines have disappeared too, which wasn't improving the situation, but I'll deal with that later. I tried to get those little starry bits back on there, and I think that's what was really throwing me off. I still wasn't happy with it, but adding in some highlights did help a little, and then I decided that I really wanted to ink this again because it just wasn't looking that great. But before I did that, I actually added in some more gold gouache paint because shiny paint fixes everything. And now I'm going in with a much thicker outline around the edge of the pineapple to make it really stand out from the background. And then I went in with some thinner lined pens just to get a bit more detail, and I think this actually improved the entire drawing. It looks a lot better now with those black lines reinstated over the top of the gouache. And I just had to accept that the starry bits are going to look a bit funny no matter what I do, and then I just spritzed the whole painting with a tiny bit of gold, because at this point, why not? I've given something for the pineapple to sit on, and then I also gave this postcard a gold border because it matches in with the bookmark. I like how the colours came out in this pineapple, and layering it with gouache really did improve it a lot, I think. So it's a combination of gouache and watercolour, and ink pen too. Alright, moving on to my next one, and I had to do one Christmas picture, I couldn't help myself. It looks like a snowman to begin here, but it's not going to be a snowman, you'll see what it is very soon. Now I'm adding in some big fluffy ears, it's going to be a Christmas koala. Why it has a Christmas hat and scarf on, I don't know, but it looks cute, so I figured it would stay. And I know a lot of you who are watching are in the Northern Hemisphere and will be experiencing winter right about now. I drew a present for the koala to sit on, and now I'm just adding in the face. I did not like the eyes, they were creeping me out, and the mouth was creepy too, so I did end up changing a lot of its facial features, rubbing things out and redrawing them in so that I was happy. I decided the koala's eyes should be closed because it just looked cuter and happier. And now I'm going over everything with an ink pen once again because it just feels like a cartoony sort of picture and it always looks better with an outline. I think this one ended up being my favourite of the day, although it did take quite a long time to draw. I'm not too sure if this one or the pineapple took longer, but they were both quite complicated. Anyway, I'm getting into the painting now, and of course I have to have lots of red on here because it's my favourite colour and it just needs to be as Christmassy as possible. I think for this painting I mostly used the Da Vinci palette that came in the Advent box, and there are some really lovely colours in there. I'm still enjoying the palette. And I think Miranda Watson of Alkali Creek Art did an amazing job putting it all together. I decided to paint the present red too, just so that it's not too busy of a colour palette, and now I'm painting the koala with some different greys, which I'm now remembering came out of my Roman Schmoll palette, so I had a whole bunch of paint palettes on my desk. What you can't see here is the absolute mess my desk was in by the end of this painting session. I had about 4 or 5 palettes out on my desk, plus all the boxes of gouache and all sorts of other bits and pieces. But it is a good time making a mess when you're creating, and then I just clean it all up at the end. I love how this koala turned out. He's so cute, and then he's got a little gum leaf in his mouth. Or is it a her? I don't know. But here's this cobalt turquoise once again. I thought this would make a nice background colour, and the turquoise goes well with the red. Kind of a flat wash, although I was using a round brush, so it's not quite as flat as I could have gotten it, but it looks pretty good, and there is a little bit of granulation coming through in it. Then I was adding in just a bit more shadow and depth to the painting, and thinking about what I wanted to do for the present, because it needs to be slightly more interesting than what it is now, just a big red box. But firstly, more layers of paint. and then I need to let everything dry before I do anything else. Once it had dried, I found a gold glitter pen, and I'm just drawing some stripes on the present to make it look shiny and glittery. I almost stuffed up the pattern of the lines, but I managed to pull it back just at the last minute there, and I think it looks really great with the glitter on there. Of course, I couldn't help myself, and other parts of the picture also get some glitter, just lines on the scarf and the hat. And I also drew in a little bow because I'd made a little bit of a mess, and I think that just helped a lot. I'd got my hand in the glitter on the right hand side there. I fixed that up off camera, and now I'm just adding in a few white ink highlights just because that's what I like to do at the end of a painting. And just because I felt it needed to match the other two, I had some blurry footage here of me drawing a gold line around the edge of the postcard. And that just really finished it off. I'm so happy with how this one turned out. It's so cute. A merry festive koala. And I have one last painting, this time on the cardie paper because I was really curious to try that out. I wet the whole thing with that large wash brush, and now I'm just dropping in paint and letting it flow where it wants to, including some of that cobalt turquoise and magenta blues, also some really deep indigo. That's from the Rosa Gallery set, and it just flows across that paper so well. And this is another imaginary piece. I didn't know what it was going to be until I started dropping the paint on, and now I can see something in the picture. So I had an idea of what I was going to do. This is definitely going to be a night sky. But the paper was so wet I let it dry overnight, and now I'm adding another layer of water and paint to get that really strong colour happening. I had so much water on here, and it was all over my desk as well because I really didn't want to put tape around the edges. I just like to paint to the edges sometimes and have a good time with it. But I let it dry again. It looks paler than what it actually is, and now I'm spraying in a galaxy of stars with the bleed-proof white ink. Now I'm painting in what I guess are fir trees or pine trees, and I added some into the direct foreground and then decided I needed to have some further back as well. So what I started doing was painting in paler trees, because the lighter they are, the more distance they convey, and then you paint dark ones to show the ones that are closer. This one turned out quite well too, and I'm very happy with the final result. So I just started painting in darker trees to show the ones that are closer in. And I let it dry a few times and then just went in darker and darker. That indigo from Rosa Gallery is almost black. It's so incredibly dark. It's a beautiful paint. I really love it. And you saw how it flowed in the water too. I always love it when they do that. So I just kept painting in trees until I was happy with how many there were. And this one does give me a lot more of a winter feel to it. So this one is my Northern Hemisphere painting for the day. And I'd love to hear in the comments if you've been doing any painting around the holidays, and what have you been painting? I think after this lot I have a bit of painting fatigue, so I am going to take a bit of a break, but I will have at least one video up between Christmas and New Year. Possibly two if I can manage to finish the second one, which is not looking good so far. But I finished this painting off with some little birds and just some really dark trees in the close foreground, and I decided to call it done. I like how this one came out. Simple but effective. And let me just show you all of the paintings together. So first up is this bookmark, summery and festive, with plenty of gold on it just to make me happy as well. I love anything shiny and metallic or glittery. Next up is the postcard with the pineapple on it, and this one turned out a lot better than it had any right to be because I had made a mess of it to begin with. But sometimes persistence pays off, and when in doubt, just add another layer over the top of it. Next up is my Christmas koala, and I'm super happy with how this turned out. This one gave me the least problems out of the three. But I think they actually go really well together as a trio. That cobalt turquoise really pulls them together. And last up is my cardie paper painting, a night sky with fir trees, and that is definitely a more wintry feel to it. And here they all are together, summer and winter. I had fun painting them, but I still have heaps of paper left, so I guess I'll be doing some more at some point. That's going to be next year. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up. You might like to click the subscribe button for more videos, and I've got a couple of other painting videos up here for you to view if you haven't already watched them. I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. I hope you have fun whatever you get up to, and I'll see you all again really soon in my next video. Swatch you later. Bye!